Yo, Getian here. We are back with a different kind of video. We're going to do a very quick first impressions and analysis of the new Euphorias in 3.0. We're going to start off with Druvis, starting it with her because Getian and Centurion, they can kind of be talked about together since they're going to, Getian can boost reality damage and Centurion is reality damage. So let's go ahead. Let's start with Druvis here. It's going to buff her Circle of Life here. If you don't know what Circle of Life here, this is a picture of the old Circle of Life. It gives a bunch of stuff with the new Euphoria, damage deal, leech rate, damage bonus, penetration rate, and then extra attack and more penetration rate if the enemy is under petrified status. So with the new 3.0 Druvis Euphoria, we got rank 1. It strengthens it by doing a additional attack called Sprouts in the Fire. So based on the incantation level of the incantations that you use this turn, you're going to gain stacks to do this extra damage at the very end. A lot of people are calling it the Plant Impromptu. Let's just think about it as like a Plant Impromptu for now. It's just easier to think of it that way. Basically, you're going to use a bunch of skills based on the number of incantations. You're going to do this extra damage at the end called Sprouts in the Fire. What is it? At the start of the round, each stack deals a percentage of average attack of all allies as Genesis damage, then removes all stacks after. So it's like a little mini impromptu. Each stack for the rank 2, each stack of Sprouts and Fire decreases critical resist rate and critical defense. Pretty nice, but there can be a little bit problem here. We'll talk about that in just a second. When entering battle, strengthens Circle of Life. When there are more Plant of Flatus allies, increase penetration rate of allies under Circle of Life in front of self, increase damage reduction of allies under Circle of Life behind self. So currently, we also get just penetration rate straight up 15% just by existing. But then if you attack enemies under petrified side, you get another 25% extra penetration rate. So currently the Euphoria in global as of right now is 40% penetration rate when you're attacking the petrified enemy. So it's kind of, we're not really sure how much penetration rate it's going to be now if it's in the front and based on the Plant of Flatus allies. If say you're playing a full Plant of Flatus team, are you going to hit that 40% penetration rate? If it doesn't hit that 40% penetration rate, then it's kind of a little bit worse than the one that we currently have, which kind of sucks. So on to the very last one, rank 4. When entering battle, strengthen Circle of Life. When there are more Plant of Flatus characters, when Sprouts and Fire, like again, we're going to call it the Plant Impromptu, is triggered. When the Plant Impromptu is triggered, each stack increases allies attack. So it does have some attack benefits currently on the other version that we have. So as you can see, we gain attack based on Druvis's third mental defense. So there's already a flat attack bonus that we're getting. So it's kind of like the same, but it's now giving buffs in a different way and additional damage on Sprouts in Fire. So let's go ahead and talk about the potential teams with the new Euphoria for Druvis. Obviously, a lot of people are probably thinking of it already. Which plant character plays by increasing incantation levels? Obviously Marcus. So I think Marcus will be the best character to pair Druvis with her newest Euphoria, and then we kind of have to fill in the rest of the team here. I think Argus would be an amazing support for this because Argus does a skill at the very end of the turn based on the level of incantations used. So she's going to either use a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, and that's going to overall also add to the Sprouts in the Fire Genesis damage buffing that the second Euphoria Druvis has. And then you probably want to fill out this last slot with the healer. You can go Villa. Villa is going to boost Marcus's damage overall, one of the best supports for Marcus and just your overall entire team. And this would be actually how you put them. You want to put the 2 carries in the beginning or the front because they're going to get that extra penetration rate, and then Villa for the damage reduction. If you don't have any of these characters here, you can obviously substitute Villa for Kikania would be a great, or any other plant healer, because you want to really maximize the buff, which is penetration rate and attack bonus based on the amount of plant characters that you have. So Villa or Kikania for sustain, and if you don't have them, you can also put in Sotheby, but it's not going to be as great. And then in terms of other supports, if you don't have Argus, you can probably put Annalie in here. Annalie is passively going to increase your overall damage of the teammates. You can cast her buff card, which gives you a damage bonus and then damage resistance, and also star up her incantations to do higher incantations as well. You can also play like a all double down, triple down on the damage here, and you're most likely going to rely on the 10% damage heal that you gain from Druvis. Obviously, this is a very dangerous team, and you better complete that fight really soon, or you can keep the enemies dazed, or you can also keep them petrified. So this is also a possible team if you sustain this comp here. Okay, I also forgot to mention, besides Marcus being like probably one of the best characters for the second Euphoria, also Elizabeth is going to be another amazing potential unit to really boost up the incantation levels and increase that plant impromptu damage from Sprout in the fire as well. So that's probably going to be the best teams. So it's probably going to be any of these teams here where you throw in Argus or Onanli, and then you have either Villa or Kikania as the support. So another thing to mention is the Genesis damage. So the new play impromptu thing does do Genesis damage, and you could possibly boost it with Tuesday. Then if you're playing Tuesday, you can possibly play with a Willow, but then where's your healer? Also, is this really worth it? I don't really think so. Maybe you can just only put in Tuesday here to boost the Genesis damage. We don't know. So that might not be the best idea, because you're going to lose out on the increased penetration rate based on the number of plant of latest characters. And Tuesday is not a plant of latest character. So unfortunately, you're going to be missing out on some penetration rate, even though you are boosting the Genesis damage of the Spouts and Fire. Again, that's why we don't know how well it's going to be, because if it does a lot of damage, then it might be worth putting Tuesday in just for the extra bit of Genesis damage. Another staple in Marcus teams is Mercuria. She can provide a lot of crit buffs and also increase the level of incantations on your team as well. This could also boost the damage of the Druvis plant impromptu. But however, it's kind of like the same thing as Tuesday, where is it worth that Genesis damage boost or that extra boost in damage? Again, if you don't put in a non-afflatus character, you're going to lose out on some penetration rate. And that's why we're not sure, because we don't know how much penetration rate it's going to give, how much Genesis damage is overall going to do. So is it even worth boosting it by putting another non-plant character here? So we don't know yet, but this is another potential, and then you can just fill it in at the end with another sustained character. So far, it looks interesting. We don't know yet. It could be really good, or it could be just all right. Let's go ahead and talk about Getian. So rank 1, Eureka limit increase. A prophecy told, which is the array, changes to Eureka consumption. Gains Eureka when casting I Shall Walk Exist and No. I Shall Walk Exist No is the name of the ultimate, and the prophecy foretold is what the array is called. Okay, let's go back here. So a prophecy told gains the following additional effects when a reality damage ally attacks. Incantation might additionally increases. Really awesome. Bone reading triggering admonition no longer consumes Eureka and is no longer removed when Eureka is inadequate and persists for several rounds. Additionally, admonition is seen as an incantation. Okay, so this one's a little weird, because admonition I feel like has already been seen as an incantation, but we'll see how it works when it comes out. Admonition's reality damage is additionally increased. So if you didn't know what all that means, is when you cast a channel, you're going to go into bone reading. Once you're in bone reading, at the end of the round, you're going to cast admonition. This is the mass attack, and this here is explicitly says it does not count as extra action. However, I feel like it does in global version. So let me just show you what I mean here. So if you go over here, obviously we're going to play with Flutter Page. This is another thing we're going to talk about. Oh my god, another character that plays with Flutter Page. Crazy. So I'm going to show you the Junanzi, so how it works. So we have 10 stacks of Gust. Whenever an teammate uses attacks, it's going to get 1 Gust, and then the follow attacks and it counts another action. It's give you 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you what it looks like with Junanzi here. You're going to go ahead and use that attack. This is counters 1. That's the follow-up attack. Let's count another one. So now we go from 10 Gust to 2 Gust. So that counts as, follow-up attacks, extra incantation. So let me show you what the current, bone reading admonition does already. If it explicitly says it does not count as an incantation, why is it going to give me 2 stacks? So right now we're at 12. Here we go. This is 1. That's going to be 13. And did you see that? That's the admonition. That's the mass attack that comes down, that strikes down. See, now we're at 4. Well, we lose 10 because of the passive losing every 2 turns, but we went from essentially 2 to 4. I don't know why it says it doesn't count as an extra action, but it counts here with Flutter Page. So that's one thing. Let's go back over here. Okay, so now that you kind of know what that means, let's go keep talking about the kit here. Rank 2, when entering battle, increases Moxie at the end of the round. If under Prophecy Foretell, the array increases Moxie for herself. So this is kind of like a Lopera, where she's under her array. She's going to keep shooting her bullets. She's going to get that +1 Moxie. So she's going to consistently get to her ults passively, okay? After casting Old Bones, additionally cast Admonition. So Old Bones is the other skill, okay? So if you cast the other skill, now you're going to cast Admonition. So basically, this is kind of like, you know, Judanzi, right? You cast that skill, you get another follow-up of another skill. This Admonition cast additionally gains increase in reality damage. Okay, so we just overall get more and more damage. While under I Prophecy Foretell, while under the array, when Getian casts Admonition, which is the follow attack, gains additional critical rate and critical damage from inside effects. So if you didn't know already, he gets like 20% critical rate and critical damage from the inside effects. So it's going to just overall do more damage. While under Prophecy Foretold, when casting ultimate, cast Admonition and additionally increases reality damage. So this is interesting because while under Prophecy Foretold, does this mean just for him? Or does it mean for all of the characters that you have? Because if it is all of the characters, it can be kind of crazy, because if you cast a lot of ultimate skills, you are going to proc Getian's Admonition follow attack a lot, which is going to be kind of crazy. Okay, let's quickly talk about potential Getian teams. So I think a potential reality wheelchair team is going to form. There was already kind of like this this wheelchair team going on in CN, where every team kind of needs Flatutu, which is Flutterpage and Flatutu here. As you can see, the Dynamo team would love these two. The Blood type team with Semmelweis Nautica would love these two characters. So this was already a little bit of a wheelchair team forming, but now with Getian is going to make this into a reality specific wheelchair team comp, because this is such a crazy pairing. Let's take Flatutu out here. This pairing is crazy, and depending on how much damage they give for the Admonition, and now that it is going to count as an incantation, which is going to be follow-up probably, and is going to be buffed by Flutterpage, it's going to be crazy. So Flutterpage is going to boost all of his damage. He's going to boost all of Flutterpage's damage. So these two are going to make up a lot of damage in your team comp, in my opinion. Potential like 20-30%, even more, depending on what team you play them in. So now they're going to form the wheelchair team with Sustain Flatutu, and now you can kind of see where you can plug and play any of the reality damage character. You can put in Lily here. Now she gets the follow-up bonus. Now she gets the reality damage bonus. Insane. Now you can play Liang Yu in this. Now this is going to be a pretty awesome team as well. You get both benefits there. She can also extend the buffs and everything of everyone, so that could be a really good team. Junanzi could be in this. Like, you see what I'm saying here? You see the team? This is a reality damage wheelchair team. You put in play any of these reality damage carries, and you're probably going to do decent damage, just because these two are going to do so much damage. This team is really good, and you're probably thinking like, okay, isn't Pickles going to be usually here instead of Getian? Well, this is not really like Getian is better than Pickles. It's more like Getian is going to free up your Pickles for essentially the, the Recoleta, Pickles, Melania, Maltier comp. Or there's another thing where you can do now is, yes, you can probably play Recoleta in this team. You can play Maldir there, and then that could be one team. But then you're missing out Melania, right? So if you want to play Melania, then you wouldn't have no sustain. Or if you play Melania here, then you're not even playing Getian. So I'm just saying, I think Recoleta, yes, she's a reality damage carry, but she has better teams out there than trying to fit Getian in there, okay? So that's going to be it for that. And then very quickly, again, this is going to be a wheelchair team. Let's talk about the characters on the bottom that we haven't discussed yet. They're reality damage dealers, but they have conflicting things with Getian. So the electric field right here from the Dynamo team, Ulrich and Lucy, they do not stack with his array. So unfortunately, not great synergy. Lopera has her own array. Again, not great synergy. Semmelweis also has her own array. Again, does not coincide with his array. And then these two characters here, Nautica and Eternity, they do reality damage. However, their best teammate is Semmelweis. So the Getian buffs are not going to be better than the Semmelweis buffs for these specific teammates. So I'd rather just not pair them with these characters up here. So yeah, this is going to be a kind of a potential reality damage wheelchair team for all these reality damage characters until they get a little stronger through their Euphorias or whatever. There is a potential team comp that I'm going to talk about in the Centurion Euphoria that we'll go over. All right, on to the final character, Centurion. So Victorious General increases Moxie when entering battle. Victorious General increased damage based on current Moxie. Same thing with the other skill. And then now they're all both affected by ultimate might. So here's the thing. If you don't know what Victorious General, this is the kick card, which I'm going to refer to. And then the outdoor superstar, this is the one that just does AoE mass attack damage. Another thing to note that this applies weakness on the ulti, and she gains healing whenever she loses Moxies, which is casting ult, or potentially later on we will see in the Euphoria here. Okay, so let's talk about it here. So these two now increase damage based on current Moxie and is affected by ultimate damage might. So very interesting here. When casting Victorious General, which is the kick card, if Moxie is below a certain limit, increases own Moxie. Otherwise, if Moxie is above a certain limit, consume Moxie to additionally increase reality damage. Same thing with the outdoor superstar. Same thing on both. So either you have this limit, you either do more damage by consuming Moxie, or you increase Moxie to that limit until you can finally consume Moxie. And then the last four, rank 4 here, casting ultimate does not consume Moxie. After casting ultimate, enters Feast of Heaven. Feast of Heaven cannot gain ultimate for a certain number of rounds. Casting Victorious General and Outdoor Superstar does not consume Moxie. Critical rate and critical damage are increased. Clears all Moxie when status ends. Okay, so this is a bit interesting. She's going to do a lot of damage. She seems to be very AP hungry because you probably want to be spamming these skills. All right, so let's quickly talk about Centurion's team here. And then we just literally talked about the wheelchair team. So yeah, you could probably just put her in the wheelchair reality damage team and she probably do fine. She's going to benefit from the +1 AP. She's getting so much reality damage from Getian. You can also change a flutter page here and put in, like we said, Maldir here. So Maldir would actually work really well here because you get the +1 AP. You also get some ultimate might bonus for Centurion. However, I don't feel like this synergy is going to be that great because, or there's not going to be much synergy because she doesn't actually consume the Moxie. Because once she gets into this status here, there's no Moxie consumed, but then she does consume all the Moxie at the, or clears the end of the Moxie. You know, the wording is a little weird here. So I do see that it potentially could work out, but there's going to be some downtime where she's not going to consume Moxie and Maldir is not going to be able to get her passive up where she's going to buff characters with that. So in my opinion, I don't think this is going to be that great of a synergy. I think the wheelchair team is still going to be better for Centurion. You can also maybe play Shemaine here, but again, I don't really think it's going to be that great. Shemaine does give Moxie, does give Ceremonies, which is ultimate might, so it could boost it. But again, at this point, I think Getian is probably better for her. So I think this is probably going to, I think the reality wheelchair team is probably one of her better teams. But you let me know. I'm not sure. I feel like her Euphoria is a little bit underwhelming. It's really going to be up to the damage numbers, how much each Moxie contributes to the damage to really see, because she is very, very AP hungry. And obviously you want to have +1 AP to help with that and Getian to shred the reality defense. And then obviously you got the sustain. So I think her best team is going to be the wheelchair team, but we'll have to see. All right, that's going to be my first impressions for these Euphorias. Obviously, we don't have their numbers yet, so we don't know how they're going to perform. These are just my preliminary thoughts. So I'm actually interested in hearing what you guys can cook up for their team comps, because there are some potential crazy things you can do here. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.